So I trust we're doing well. So it's the season of Alpha R, and a lot of stories are trending online. I saw one that said that the man cares whoever because they hacked into his account and deleted all his messages. And it's no news. Perhaps it's just time now. Gone are the days of Mokpa. We've had a Janasari crusade where his specialty was healing people in the wheelchairs. Times of Benny Hinn. Creflo Dollar. There was this man, is it Miles Monroy, who used to come to Ghana to hold crusades. All those big names that came from Europe, because of course Africa is a cash ground. And see how people are even defending this Alpha guy when chairs came out of church, money being counted with counting machines. Wow, it looks like a very lucrative business, and the youth should consider that as another option of looking for employment. In case, of course, there are theologian schools, just go get your 3 years degree certificate. You know, when I was a Christian, at a point I really had high hopes of being a pastor, or maybe even married to a pastor, like run a church. When I'm walking around, I see these free Bible schools. I'll apply for one. So I applied for this one, and the course was 8 weeks. I was in the program for like 2 weeks. I began to listen to the lectures. I'm like, wow, that's not the kind of pastor I want to be. To the extent that in one of the lectures, the man said, listen, sometimes when you are giving prophecy to people, it may not really be true, but you have to use psychology. I'm like, psychology in the church? Oh, wow, interesting. One man even told me, like, he went to a proper theology school 3 years, and it's like, sometimes when they even question their theologian teachers on some of the principles of the Bible, it's like, don't ask questions, don't try to know so much, because if you do, you become confused, and at the end of the day, you can't even impart to the people. So it's a business on its own, where at the end of the day, they also have to keep some guidelines for as long as you want to operate in the business. Obinim has come and gone. Recently, there was this Patapa pastor, Obofo. He too, now we don't really see much of him. The Kumasi pastors, they've all come and gone. So this Alpha Hour guy coming is no news to us. Maybe it's just his cocoa season. He's also here to reap. And it's surprising because countless number of people on social media, even raining curses on others who try to speak against religion. The fact that it's a money-making center. Because all these offering, this morning I even saw one video where that comedian with big head, what's his name? DKB, insulting other people for speaking against Alpha Pastor and the fact that he's doing the work of God, and ACU blow, fuel, cars, and all that. A collection of operatory is needed. But the fact that all these things are needed shows that it's not the work of God. Who is God? Where is He? Why is He giving these command centers that people just wake up and, man of God, I'm organizing prayers online, this, that. And I saw Biabe to me, sorry, I am a man of God. And that is the problem of Africa. Because once people realize they have power to pull crowd, and they try one, two, it works, and money is coming, then now they are men of God. In Ghana, Kone Bia Obefa Bia a man of God, giving prophecies. To the extent that they even fulfill prophecies of government. Recently, I saw another video where the vice president had gone to one church to donate money to the pastor, and that was a large sum of money. It also shows that these governments and churches work hand in hand. And when you go into the Bible, at least Google church and government, you realize how so much power was given to the church to be autonomous. The people who wrote the Bible were obviously men, and they were the founders of the Catholic Church. So far from history, that's what I've read. You can also check. And so to make the church thrive, they had to enact laws and put them in the Bible for you to give so much respect to the church. This church and government were the same, because when you check through history of the missionaries in Ghana, it was the papacy in Rome or wherever the Christian centers were that sent missionaries to Africa and Ghana for that matter. And the sole duty of these missionaries was to give messages to those they had been able to brainwash, the so-called faithful, to be submissive, be obedient to authorities, and to forgive. At the end of the day, the people who were telling you through the scriptures to forgive and forget, because vengeance of the Lord, were looting gold, diamonds, all the great minerals of Africa, whilst also capturing slaves. Then they put all these things on the same vessels. When they get to Europe, the Americas, wherever, They trade off these slaves, and then they take the jewelries and all other treasures they took from Africa to the appropriate headquarters. The same church that was teaching Africans to be submissive, to be obedient, to be loyal, to be faithful, to consider themselves sinners, were the same people who were handling finances. So it was later, through human growth civilization, they tried to separate these things. So when you come to Africa, you think the church is different from government. But check, at the end of the day, the president is a Christian. For him to even come to power, we saw so many prophecies online. So when they come to power, now it becomes more like a political prophet, devised either Muslim, Christian. Most of these political people in power belong to one church or the other and are constantly making donations there, just to also keep the masses brainwashed and think that it's only when you look up to God you can reach these kind of positions. How often have you seen traditional people in positions? Even if they are there, they may not want to show themselves. When I was younger, I had one pastor who used to speak so bad of Nkrumah, that Nkrumah was an occult. He was into demonic worship practice. He brought deities to Africa, and it's the cause of Africa's downfall. But when you go deep, you realize that he had to do those things, and then with the right rituals done, Africa was getting its liberation. Africa was on the verge of being set free. Then the so-called Christian, the so-called religious people who thought Nkrumah was rather the occultist, the one rather selling Africa, took power. Oh my God. Because for them, it was about controlling the masses. I always ask, why control people when you can liberate people and equally share with them? And that's why Europe is thriving, because in as much as you may hear one or two bad stories about Europeans and the fact that they are bad, they colonize Africa. See, when they get to their land, they are always thinking of how to prosper their land, how to make the environment friendly for each and every person, even if not for everybody, the majority of people who live in there. Go online, check on stories about Japan and see. Maybe we may not see the bad side about Japan, but most of the stories you see on social media, their streets, their services, the way they do things, and there's not even a Christian or Muslim community on the large. And that is why we keep speaking against Christianity, because Africa, that is a so-called Christian countries, if we see the kind of things being done. I saw a video where one lady was saying she came to Africa, and Africa is not a place to stay in because there was so much filth, dirt. The environment didn't look like a place humans lived in. But just within that center, there was a place that was a church, and this church had beautiful edifice. There was a beautiful flower within dirty waters, and it didn't make sense to her. And it's true. That's what Africa has become like. When I was a Christian, it was always about the church, building a big edifice so it will surpass the one on the next street, buying a car for a pastor. This is not to say these things are not necessary, but it's like we spend so much in one spot and neglect all other environments. Then at the end of the day, we don't understand why people have become corrupt. Oh, Africa, like seriously. To those who say it's a new year and New Year resolutions, I think one of the most important resolutions is change yourself. The way you think about yourself, your environment. One time I was walking with my mother, she drank water and just threw the wrapper around. I'm like, woman, you're a Christian, I don't do that. When I go to town and drink water, I put the rubber in my bag till I get home. We can be each other's keeper, but Africa, yes,